What would you do if your own parents plotted your ruin right in front of you, believing you were too blind, too naive, or too uneducated to understand? Imagine sitting at the kitchen table, hearing the people you trusted most whispering in a language they thought was their shield, never realizing you understood every poisoned word. This isn't a story about language. It's a story about betrayal, survival, and revenge so precise it shattered everything they built. Stay with me until the end, because the twist is one you'll never forget. My name is Clara Mora. I'm 27 years old, and for most of my life I believed I was lucky. My parents weren't affectionate, but I told myself their strictness was love in disguise. My father, stern and silent, seemed like a man who carried the weight of the world. My mother, sharp-eyed and calculating, hovered over every detail of my life. I thought it was protection. I thought it was guidance. I was wrong. From childhood, I noticed the way they spoke in French when they didn't want me to hear something. Quick exchanges at the dinner table, murmured conversations late at night. I always assumed it was nostalgia, a way for them to keep a piece of their past alive. But when I was old enough, I decided to learn French in secret. At first, it was curiosity. Later, it became survival. For years, I said nothing. I let them believe their secret language kept me in the dark. But one evening, sitting at that kitchen table with their voices slicing through the air, I realized the truth. They weren't talking about me as their daughter. They were talking about me as their liability. It started with one phrase that cut me to the bone. Elle ne doit jamais savoir. She must never know. I froze, my spoon clinking against the bowl. My mother's eyes flicked to me, measuring, calculating, but I kept my face still. She turned back to my father, her voice lowering again. They spoke of money, of documents, of signatures made in my name without my consent. They joked about accounts drained under my nose, about debts that would fall squarely on my shoulders. And then, what strung worse than all of it, they laughed, as though I were too foolish, too trusting, to ever question their schemes. That night I sat awake in bed, my heart racing. My parents, the very people I believed were my shield, were building my destruction behind closed doors. But I didn't scream, I didn't confront. Instead, I listened harder. For weeks, I sharpened my ears. I slowed my breathing, made myself invisible in my own home, memorizing every word. And with every whispered plan, I pieced together the truth. Offshore accounts, forged signatures, loans taken under my name. They weren't just stealing from me, they were setting me up to take the fall when it all collapsed. That's when my silence became my weapon. By day, I acted like the same obedient daughter. By night, I scoured financial records, traced transactions, and pulled at the threads of their carefully woven web. My father was arrogant enough to mix English into his French voice notes, thinking no one but my mother would ever hear them. I copied them all. By midnight one evening, I had enough evidence to bury them. Bank statements, emails, voice notes, transfers, proof of everything they'd stolen, proof of every betrayal. And instead of hiding it away, I did something far more devastating. At 2 a.m, I logged into the accounts they thought I couldn't access. I changed every password. I froze the funds they had stashed away, and what I couldn't protect, I redirected into accounts in my name. But I didn't stop there. I translated every damning French exchange into English and attached the receipts, the records, and the voice notes. Then I sent it all to their closest business partners, to the friends who admired them, even to my uncle in Lyon, the one man in the family who despised them enough to act. By 3 a.m., I pressed send. By 9 a.m., their empire was burning. The first call came from my mother. Her voice wasn't controlled anymore. It was shrill, panicked. "What did you do?" she screamed. I let her rage fill my ear, silent satisfaction coursing through me. Then I hung up. Minutes later, my father's number appeared. His voice was nothing like the booming authority I'd grown up with. It was broken, desperate. "Clara," he said softly, "we can fix this. Please, we can fix this." I spoke only one sentence. "You thought I didn't understand, but I understood everything." And then I ended the call. When I returned home that evening, The air was heavy with the ashes of their downfall. At the same kitchen table where they had conspired, they now sat in silence, their eyes hollow, their hands trembling. My father finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Why?" I met his gaze without flinching. "Because you treated me like I wasn't your daughter, so I stopped being one." My mother reached for me, but I pulled away. That touch meant nothing now. They had gambled on my ignorance. They lost everything to my understanding. The fallout was swift and brutal. Their partners cut ties. Their so-called friends spread the scandal like wildfire. Contracts dissolved overnight. Their reputation, the family name they prized more than anything, was dragged through the mud until nothing was left. Even the house, the estate that had been their fortress, began to crumble under debt collectors and lawsuits. They wanted me silent. I gave them exposure. They wanted me powerless. I showed them I had been watching all along. And when their empire collapsed, I didn't stand in the rubble beside them. I walked away. Months later, they still try to reach me, sometimes begging, sometimes cursing, always trying to pull me back into their cycle. But I don't answer. Because I learned something important at that kitchen table. Betrayal doesn't need confrontation, it needs precision. I listened, I understood, I waited, and when I struck clean. Even now, I hear echoes of their words in French. Elle ne doit jamais savoir. She must never know. But I did. And that was their undoing. So tell me, if your own parents used you as a pawn in their schemes, would you forgive them? Or would you, like me, let precision and patience be your revenge? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story of betrayal, family secrets, and the power of quiet strength, don't forget to subscribe to Taylee's Between Time for more stories that will stay with you long after they're told.